Happy New Year! Alistair Weaver here for Edmunds with the top 10 differences between the new 2024 Chevrolet Silverado EV and the 2023 Ford F-150 Lightning. It's the classic head-to-head with a futuristic twist. To compile this list, we've not only absorbed everything Ford and GM's PR teams were willing to proffer, we've also spent time with Ford's head of battery electric vehicles, the ever-genial Darren Palmer, and the chief engineer for the Silverado EV, the delightful Nicole Kratz. We're going to compare the spec of each and declare a provisional winner in every category. But before we do that, please do subscribe to our channel. This is, after all, nearly Christmas. And if you want to sell your car, head to edmunds.com/sellmycar. And now, without further ado, let's get on with it. Let's start with the bragging rights. First editions of the Silverado EV will boast 664 horsepower and 780 pounds-feet of torque. That's 101 horsepower and 5 pounds-feet more than the most powerful bolt of lightning. The first edition also has something called a wide open Watts mode for full bore acceleration. That's an acronym for WOW! Did you see what they did there? Lesser powered Silverados will still boast 510 horsepower versus 426 for the Ford, but the latter does have much more torque, 775 versus 615. Why less torque? Because working trucks don't need to do 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, says Kratz. In other words, don't have fun at work, people. Winner? Chevy. But now they've shown their hand, don't bet against a more powerful Ford by 2023. Lightning Raptor, anyone? One of the big sells of EV trucks is your ability to use all of those watts for other means. Tailgating, chopping up wood, or even topping up other EVs. Palmer reckons it's this extra versatility that's really driving sales of the Lightning. The Silverado has 10.2 kilowatts of power and 10 outlets. The Ford has up to 9.6 kilowatts. Winner, Chevy by a nose. If you're heading off-road, or especially if you're towing, range anxiety is a big deal for EV trucks. To combat this, both Chevy and Ford include sophisticated onboard calculators to provide some therapy. Ford is offering 2 different battery options on the Lightning, with an estimated range of 230 and 300 miles respectively. Chevy is claiming a range of up to 400 miles for the bigger battery version of the Silverado, and we expect the smaller battery to match Ford's bigger battery, if you're still following me. Kratz reckons this is the big advantage of the Silverado's philosophy. While the Lightning uses a version of the F-150's ladder frame chassis, the Silverado is based on the platform used by the new Hummer, which is built for EVs. GM says this means it's less compromised. All this is hypothetical though. At Edmunds, we've developed our own independent range and efficiency test program for all EVs. And we've learned that the EPA claims can play out very differently in the real world. Let's see what our independent tests reveal about these two. A big win for Chevy, in theory. T is for towing. In their optimal tune, both trucks will tow up to 10,000 pounds. The commercial versions will tow 8,000 Chevy and 7,700 Ford. To put that into context, a fully specified gas F-150 will tow up to 14,000 pounds. Chevy says it's working on a Silverado EV that will tow 20,000 pounds, and we expect to see more heavy-duty Lightnings too. Winner, tie. On paper, this is a big win for Ford. The bigger battery version of the Lightning has an 1,800 pounds payload, versus 1,300 for the first edition Silverado. Models with less standard kit will likely be able to carry more, but even in their working guises, the Ford can carry 2,000 pounds to the Chevy's 1,200. Big win for Ford, huge! If you're the owner of a gas or diesel powered Silverado, listen up. The leaf spring is gone. The EV gets fully independent suspension with coil springs at the rear as standard. And on the first edition, you get the optional air suspension and rear wheel steering, which helps reduce the turning circle. Sadly though, there's no Hummer style crab walk. The Lightning does have independent suspension all round, but there's no air suspension or rear wheel steering. Well, not yet anyway. Winner? On paper it's Chevy, but the proof will be in the pedaling. This is the Silverado's party piece. You get a 5-foot 11-inch long bed as standard, which is 6 inches longer than a Lightning, despite the trucks being the same overall length. But posher versions of Silverado will also have a multi-flex midgate. Put simply, this allows you to extend the bed into the cabin below the rear window. The rear seat splits 60-40, so a rear passenger can luxuriate next to a piece of plywood. You'll also be able to legally carry items up to 10 feet 10 inches long. Winner? Chevy. This could be its trump card. Both trucks have motors front and rear, which leaves the engine bay free for a frunk, or front trunk if you prefer. This secure area is potentially the biggest advantage of an EV truck, and both are trying to maximise it. In the Ford you get 14.1 cubic feet of space, power points and a drainable floor. For context, that's enough space for a couple of sets of golf clubs. According to Chief Engineer Kratz, Chevy is still working on optimising the frunk of the Silverado, but it will be roughly the same size as the Fords. Winner? TBC, to be confirmed. Chevy has Super Cruise, Ford has Blue Cruise. Both offer a version of semi-automated driving that lets you take your hands off the wheel on a wide range of highways, as long as you continue to pay attention to the road. These systems will be available as an option on both. Winner? Tie. The first edition Silverado EV costs $105,000 plus destination. Yes, that's over $100,000 for a Silverado truck. And we expect a fully loaded Lightning to get close to that figure too. Interestingly, that's also significantly more than the admittedly smaller Rivian R1T. At the other end of the spectrum, both trucks officially start at under $40,000 plus destination. That buys you a working truck with a smaller battery pack. For its launch, even the entry-level Chevy will have the larger battery pack, so don't expect to see a $40,000 Silverado on the road until 2024, if ever, and by then there might even be a Tesla Cybertruck too. By contrast, we'll drive the Lightning this spring, and there's no denying Ford has a big head start on its old rival and Tesla. They already have almost 200,000 orders and are ramping up production to meet demand. Winner? They're priced to match, but Ford has a big head start. Be in no doubt, electric trucks have a huge future. And for those old stagers, Ford and Chevrolet, success really is a matter of survival. In our early analysis, the Chevy wins 5-2, but we won't know the true result of this head-to-head until late 2023. Such a tease. For more information on both, head to edmunds.com and please subscribe to our channel because we've got a great 2022 ahead of us. Thanks for watching and goodbye.